We welcome you to this second Sunday in Lent, as Jesus makes his journey to the Holy Week, in which he will face the crucifixion and then the resurrection of his glory and life. But in this journey that we are with him, we will examine ourselves, our lives, and become true in our faithfulness as a disciple of Christ. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the communion of the Holy Spirit be with you all. As we will, in our pilgrimage through this journey of Lent, we will examine the scriptures. And being this is a psalm in which we will read Psalm 22, verses 23 through 31, I invite you to either read aloud with me or go into a prayerful state and meditate upon the words, or create images in your mind to contemplate the meaning of these words today. Here's the story I tell my friends when they come to worship and punctuate with hallelujahs. Shout hallelujah, you God worshippers, give glory, you sons of Jacob, adore him, and your daughters of Israel. He has never let you down, never look the other way. When you were being kicked around, he has never wandered off from doing his own thing. He has been right there, listening. Here in this great gathering for worship, I have discovered this praise life. And I'll do what I promised right here in front of the God worshippers. Down and outers sit at God's table and eat their fill. Everyone on the hunt for God is here praising him. Live it up from head to toe. Don't ever quit. From the corners of the earth, people are coming to their senses, are running back to God. Long-lost families are falling on their faces before them. God is taking charge. From now on, he has the last word, and all the power mongers are before him, worshiping. All the poor and the powerless, too, worshiping, along with those who never got it together, worshiping. Our children and their children will get in on this as the word is passed along from parent to child. Babies not yet conceived will hear the good news that God does what he says. Please join me now in our opening hymn, O Lord, throughout these 40 days. Our reading for today comes from the Gospel of Mark, the 8th chapter, verses 31 through 38. Then Jesus began to teach his disciples, "The human one must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, chief priests, and the legal experts, and be killed, and then after 3 days rise from the dead." He said this plainly. But Peter took hold of Jesus and, scolding him, began to correct him. Jesus turned and looked at his disciples, then sternly corrected Peter. "Get behind me, Satan. You are not thinking God's thoughts, but human thoughts." After calling the crowd together with his disciples, Jesus said to them. All who want to come after me must say no to themselves, take up their cross and follow me. All who want to save their lives will lose them, but all who lose their lives because of me, because of the good news, will save them. Why would people gain the whole world but lose their lives? What will people give in exchange for their lives? Whoever is ashamed of me and my words is in this unfaithful and sinful generation, the human one will be ashamed of that person when he comes in the Father's glory with the holy angels. This is the gospel of our Lord. Thanks be to God. Amen. Joel Klein, in his sermon titled Ruin for Life, describes what discipleship is. John Fife is a Presbyterian pastor in Tucson, Arizona, who in the early 1980s was approached by an immigration lawyer working on the Salvatorian refuge seeking refuge in the United States. It was a time, you'll remember, when many El Salvador citizens were targets of their country's military government and death squads. When the lawyer first approached John Fife, the pastor could not even locate where El Salvador was on the map. Have you ever had one of those times when you're so oblivious to something that's happening right around you, but once you become aware, you wonder why you never noticed it before? That's what happened to John Fife and the members of Southside Presbyterian in Tucson. Though they knew little about the political events from El Salvador, they soon became aware of the political toll of the political events that were taking. Confronted with Salvatorian refugees and their needs, that small group of Presbyterians could not forget the words of Jesus, "I was a stranger, and you took me in." Long before John Fife and Southside Presbyterian Church crossed the border and began experiencing a whole new reality. The congregation started weekly prayer vigil services for the people of Central America. Soon they found themselves led even further beyond their comfort zones and began to raise money to bail refugees out of detention and help relocate them. And as they learned how to know firsthand some of the families from El Salvador who were seeking a safe place to begin anew, it was as if a new world had opened up to them, not only for the Salvatorians, but for the church as well. The Salvatorians had crossed a risky border, seeking refuge in the United States, but so had this small Presbyterian community. Soon they were helping establish an underground railroad for fledgling refugees, enabling the refugees to move from home to home in other areas of the country. But it didn't stop there. The congregation grew increasingly concerned about Immigration Services' efforts to deport, and many of the Salvatorians were stuck in this raid. And eventually, Southside Presbyterian offered a sanctuary to refugees facing deportation. The U.S. Immigration and Naturalization Service indicted John Fife and 15 others for harboring illegal aliens and the trial that ensued. An unknown pastor suddenly became a national figure, and the fledgling sanctuary movement gathered support, spreading to hundreds of congregations around the nation, all because John Fife and his congregation crossed the normal boundaries of their lives and allowed themselves to enter a whole, complete new world. They had left their comfort zone, and they would never be the same again. And that, never being the same again, scares the bejeebies out of us, as it did for Peter. Peter wanted to hang on to all that he had always known and that was familiar and comforting to him. He could not stand it. He could not stand the thought of his friend Jesus suffering and being killed. And that was all he heard in Jesus' words. He did not hear the part of in 3 days he would rise from the dead. And to believe that takes a little faith. Pastor Julianne Neese serves as a solo pastor at United Lutheran Church, an ELCA congregation in Rockford, Illinois, just south of us. She says lately she's been called out frequently for saying, "I hope so." Apparently, it makes it sound like she has a lack of faith or that she has doubts about what the future holds. She says, "I have complete faith in God. It is the human beings that I have little faith in." And that's where hope comes in. She says, "In my mind, faith and hope are intricately intertwined. My faith, my trust in God is what gives me hope. For nothing will be impossible with God. I believe in the depths of my being that God's best work is done within the impossible. But I also know from my experiences as a person who is alive on this planet that bad things happen and often miracles do not. I've seen how wickedness can overtake the human heart and people act out of their own interests rather than the interests of all. However, my hope is a waiting room. Hope is a place where I can wait and see how God will show up in the middle of an ordinary day, in a pandemic or an attack on the Capitol or in the life of a parishioner who's struggling with cancer. Hope gives me space to see what God does and will do in God's good time, and it's my faith which has allowed me to hope. I don't know when this pandemic will end. I know it will, because pandemics always do eventually. But I hope that day will be soon, for with God, nothing is impossible. I don't know if the brokenness of this nation can be fixed. That is the healing, restoration work of God, but I have hope that it will, for with God, nothing is impossible. And for all those in need of all kinds of healing, God knows what they need, and I know that they will be healed, for with God, nothing is impossible. Nothing, nothing, nothing. And I'm waiting in hope. In this hope, we read the words of Jesus calling the crowd together, and we, on our Lenten pilgrimage, examine our own selves in an understanding of what the cross means. And that is to lose our lives so that good news can prevail. Hope that God will show up in the midst of pain and suffering and offer something to cling to. Jesus is speaking to a future of a lot of unknowns. But what he does know is that his life is changing, and the lives of humanity is changing, and the church is changing, and the work of God is changing. Does this make it easy? Does this make us uneasy? Knowing we are going somewhere without a destination? Of course it does. Do we feel unsettled knowing that we may be pushed out of our pew to a place where we've never been on this faith journey? Yes, it does. Do we want to trust that the Spirit of God is at work and that we will be able to do what we are meant to do and that God would have hoped for us to do it this way? Yes, I hope so. I hope we can get there. But what Jesus is saying to us is that something has to give. Something has to give for us to go. Part of us has to be relinquished in order for us to fully embrace the goodness that God has in store for us. We are smart people. We may assess all of our options. Okay, this is one way. But if we stay where we are and we change nothing and remain in our comfort zone, Jesus says, that's a certain slow death, my friends. You will not grow at all. Wait, so death is the motivator to do the opposite of dying? Yes, and no. Because life is the motivator for dying. Life is the motivator for dying. Peter is wrapped up in his own stuff. He is anxious and afraid and let himself get this way because of his focus on the goal. Jesus knew it and sternly corrected Peter. Get behind me, ego, self-centered. Stop self-serving yourself, Peter. You are not thinking of the broad goal of God, but only of your own dis-ease and discomfort. Take up the cross, find a purpose, find a passion, live a mission, find the energy of excitement and passion that makes you come alive like this church in Tucson did. Let it go and let it happen. There will be goodness and life. There we will find our future as we follow the Christ before us. Amen. As we pick up our cross and we stand beneath it, let us sing of it beneath the cross of Jesus. Let us pray. Your gift of grace, O God, is possible for all people. Give confident faith to all the baptized that they may follow you wholeheartedly. Give to new believers joy in your promises. Give hope and courage to those who suffer for their faith. Hear us, O God. Your mercy is great. At the ends of the earth, worship you. From galaxies to microorganisms, preserve your creation. Teach humanity to wonder at your works and to join you in tending to creation's well-being. Hear us, O God. Your mercy is great. You rule over the nations. You raise up advocates for peace and justice within and between nations. Give life where hope seems dead. Call into existence new realities we cannot even yet imagine. Hear us, O God. Your mercy is great. In Jesus, you have joined humanity in suffering and death. Reveal to all the depth of your love shown on the cross. Accompany all who suffer in body, mind, and spirit, and restore all those who are sick or grieving. Bring vindication for victims of injustice, exploitation, and oppression. Hear us, O God. Your mercy is great. You made Abraham and Sarah the ancestors of a multitude of nations. Bless grandparents and parents and foster parents and the children who look to them for care and guidance. Console those who deal with infertility, parents who have entrusted their children to adoption, and children longing to be adopted. Equip ministries and services to families. Hear us, O God. Your mercy is great. We entrust ourselves to all our prayers to you, O faithful God, through Jesus Christ our Lord, who taught us to say when praying, Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. Save us from a time of trial and deliver us from evil. For the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours, now and forever. Amen. With grateful hearts that Jesus has accompanied us on this journey, we give and return. We take up the cross and we sacrifice and lose, so that we can fill our hearts with abundance. And with gracious God, Jesus promised his disciples the gift of the Holy Spirit, and the gift that remains as powerful and transformative today as it was on that first Pentecost. With generosity and thankful hearts, we offer our praise and gifts to you, O God, our time, treasure, and talent, but most of all, our hearts. Use us and these offerings for your purpose and glory. Amen. And we will sing of our faithfulness in our church in every age this day. Go out into this world in peace, have courage, hold on to what is good. Return to no person evil for evil, strengthen the faint-hearted, support those whose faith is weaker than your own, help the suffering, and honor all beings through Christ, the Creator and the Christ and the Holy One. Amen.